In the lively town of Mbale, there was a small salon called Crown of Glory. It stood at the corner of the busy market, where the sound of traders, drums and laughter filled the air every day. The salon was owned by a young woman named Amina. She was quiet, gentle, and always smiling even when the sun was hot and the power went out in the middle of the day. Everyone in Mbale knew Amina's name. Her salon was small, but her work was loved by many. The women said that her hands were special. They could turn even rough hair into something beautiful. Her braids were neat and straight, her weaves looked natural, and her oils had a sweet smell that made people feel calm. Women from nearby villages came just to get their hair done by her. They said that when Amina touched their hair, they felt lighter and happier. Amina worked from early morning until the moon came out. She had one small mirror on the wall and 2 old chairs, but no one cared about that. What mattered was how people felt when they left. Every woman left her chair smiling, touching her hair and walking with pride. Some said Amina's hands carried magic, but no one really knew her secret. Amina lived a simple life. She rented a small room behind the salon, cooked her meals on a charcoal stove, and spent her evenings writing in a small notebook. She didn't have many friends, but she was loved by everyone. Even the children who passed by her shop would wave and shout, "Amina, make my hair shine too." She would laugh and promise to braid their hair when they grew older. But there was something special about how Amina worked. Before she opened her salon every morning, she would sweep the floor carefully, clean her combs and brushes, and then bring out a small clay bowl. Inside the bowl were her oils, coconut, shea butter and a little palm oil. She would sit quietly beside it, close her eyes and whisper softly. No one knew what she said. Some people thought she was praying. Others said she was talking to her late mother, who used to be a hairdresser too. One morning, when the market was not yet busy, an old woman named Mama Kola passed by the salon. She stopped to greet Amina and said, "My daughter, how do you make your hands so blessed? Every woman who leaves your chair walks as if she's a queen." Amina smiled shyly. "Mama, I only do my work with love," she said. Mama Kola laughed and told her, "Love alone cannot make hair shine like that." Then she winked and left, shaking her head. But as she walked through the market, she began to tell people that Amina's oils were not ordinary. She said that Amina must be using something special. Maybe old herbs from the forest or secret words that gave her power. The rumor spread fast. By noon, even the fish sellers were talking about it. "Amina's oil must be magic," they said. "That's why her customers never stop coming." Some laughed, but some believed it. Amina didn't care about what people said. She kept working, smiling as always. When women sat in her chair, she would gently touch their hair and say, "Your hair will shine. You will shine too." She never raised her voice or argued with anyone. Her calmness made people trust her even more. One afternoon, a young woman named Halima came to the salon. Her business in the market was failing and she felt sad. She told Amina, "I just want to look nice, maybe it will make me feel better." Amina smiled. "You will look beautiful," she said softly. "But more than that, you will feel strong again." She braided Halima's hair slowly, speaking softly as she worked. She told her, "Sometimes when life feels heavy, a small change can lift your heart. Never stop believing in yourself." When Halima looked in the mirror, she gasped. Her hair was beautiful, but more than that, she felt peaceful. She thanked Amina and left with a big smile. That evening, Halima sold all her goods in the market for the first time in weeks. She told everyone it was because Amina's hands had blessed her. The next morning, 3 new women came to the salon. They all wanted the same hands that helped Halima. Soon, Amina's salon became even busier. Women came not just to look pretty but because they said her touch brought good luck. Amina only smiled when she heard this. She knew it wasn't luck. It was love, care, and a little prayer whispered with faith. Even the men noticed how happy their wives and sisters looked after visiting the salon. They would say, "Amina's place is full of peace. She brings joy wherever she goes." But deep inside, Amina didn't want people to think her oils were magic. She only wanted them to believe in themselves. Every morning she prayed for her customers, not for their hair but for their hearts. She prayed that they would walk proudly, speak kindly, and know that beauty begins inside. One day her little helper Tola asked, "Amina, what do you say to the bowl every morning?" Amina smiled and said, "I speak good words, my dear. Words that give strength." Tola looked curious. "Can I say them too?" Amina nodded. "Of course. Anyone can. When you do something with love, it becomes a blessing." From that day Tola began to whisper her own good words too. And soon even she started to notice. The women smiled more, laughed louder, and left the salon walking taller than before. The town of Mbale changed little by little. People started talking about kindness instead of gossip. They said that maybe the real beauty wasn't in the hair, but in the heart that gave it care. And as for Amina, she never told anyone her secret. Every morning, she still knelt beside her bowl of oil, closed her eyes, and whispered softly for those who would sit in her chair that day. She didn't need people to know. She only wanted them to feel loved even if they never found out why. If only they knew what she did on their hair, they would understand that beauty was never just about looks. It was about love, faith, and the quiet power of a kind heart. The market of Mbale was always full of noise. Every morning, traders shouted, children laughed, and the smell of roasted corn filled the air. But that afternoon, something new spread through the market. A story about Amina, the hairdresser from Crown of Glory. It started with Mama Cola, the biggest gossip in town. She was sitting near her pile of mangoes, fanning herself when she suddenly said in a loud voice, "I heard Amina mixes charms in her oils. That's why her customers look so lucky." The women around her gasped and leaned closer. "Charms?" one of them asked. "You mean she uses magic?" Mama Cola nodded, her eyes wide with fake seriousness. "Of course. Haven't you noticed? Every woman who goes to her salon comes out glowing. Some even say their husbands treat them better after Amina touches their hair." The women burst into laughter, but the laughter didn't stop the whispers. Some shook their heads and said it was nonsense, but others began to wonder. In Bale, small stories could grow as fast as fire on dry grass. By the time the sun started to set, the rumor had reached every corner of the market. The women selling vegetables whispered it. The men carrying sacks of yam repeated it. Even the children playing near the water stand were saying, "Amina uses magic on hair." When Amina arrived at the market that evening to buy food, people greeted her with curious smiles. Some called her Mama Magic jokingly. She laughed softly, not taking it seriously. She was used to gossip. After all, the market was full of talk. She just bought her tomatoes and went home. But the whispers didn't stop. The next morning, when Amina opened her salon, the air felt different. Her assistant Tola looked uneasy. "Amina," she said quietly, "people are talking about you. They say your oils are not ordinary." Amina smiled gently. "Let them talk, my dear," she replied. "People will always speak whether you do good or bad. Just keep doing your work with love." As the day went on, customers still came, though some came just to see if the gossip was true. One of them was Saad, a young woman who sold clothes in the market. She sat in Amina's chair and said jokingly, "Amina, if you really have charms, please make me rich." Amina laughed softly. "I only make your hair rich, Saad. The rest is up to you." She worked quietly, her hands moving fast and careful. The smell of coconut oil filled the room. Saad watched her in the mirror, expecting to see something strange, maybe a secret charm, maybe some hidden powder. But Amina used nothing unusual. Only her comb, her brush, and her calm words. When Saada's hair was done, it shone beautifully. She smiled and said, "Maybe your charm is just your kindness." Amina nodded. "Kindness is the strongest charm I know." But outside the talk continued. Mama Cola told anyone who would listen that she had proof. She said she saw Amina talking to herself early in the morning. She said she saw her pour oil into a bowl and whisper words over it. "I saw it with my own eyes," she claimed loudly. She was calling spirits to bless her work. The women gasped. "Spirits?" "Yes," said Mama Cola proudly. "No wonder her salon is always full." The story grew bigger. Some people began to believe it completely. Others came to the salon just to watch. They would peek through the door, hoping to catch Amina doing something strange. But all they saw was a woman braiding hair and smiling at her customers. A few days later, the market was full of excitement again. Saad, the woman whose hair Amina had done, came dancing through the stalls. She had sold all her clothes that week and made more money than ever before. She shouted, "Amina's hands are blessed. Everything is going well for me now." The people stared. Some smiled, others looked scared. To them, it was proof that Amina's oils had power. Mama Cola clapped her hands and said, "Did I not tell you? Her oils bring luck." Amina heard about this the next morning when she came to the market. She just shook her head and smiled. "If only they knew," she whispered softly to herself. That day she decided to bring more peace into her salon. She hung small calabashes with flowers near the windows, and she played soft music while she worked. When her customers sat down, she spoke kindly to them. She said things like, "You are strong," or "You are beautiful." Her words were simple but they made people feel good. The women who came to her salon didn't know that those kind words were part of her secret. Amina believed that when people heard good things they started to believe them, and when they believed them they changed. One afternoon an old man came to fix her broken chair. He had heard the gossip too, so he joked, "Amina, don't cast any spell on me while I work." She laughed softly. "Don't worry, Baba. My only spell is gratitude." The man smiled and said, "If that's true, may your good heart never stop shining." Later that week, a woman named Lami came crying to Amina's salon. Her husband had left her and she had no money for new clothes. She said, "Amina, please make my hair. Maybe it will help me forget my troubles." Amina sat her down, mixed her oils and started working slowly. "Your troubles will not last forever," she said gently. "You are still beautiful even when life feels heavy." Lami closed her eyes and let Amina work. By the time her hair was done, she looked at herself in the mirror and smiled for the first time in weeks. "You are right," she said. "Maybe I can start again." When Lami left, she stood taller. People in the market noticed her confidence and began buying her goods again. Soon her business grew and she came back to thank Amina. Word spread even faster. More people began saying, "Amina's oils don't just change your hair, they change your life." But Amina knew the truth. She didn't mix charms or call spirits. She only spoke kindness, hope, and strength over the people who sat in her chair. That was her secret. She wanted them to see beauty not only in their hair but in themselves. At night, when the market went quiet and everyone went home, Amina would sit by her small window and smile. She could still hear bits of gossip from the distance, people still wondering what she did on their hair. She didn't mind anymore. She knew her truth. She whispered softly, "If only they knew what I really do, they would understand that it's not magic. It's love." The stars twinkled above the quiet town of Mbale as the sound of laughter faded away. And inside her small salon, the woman with the gifted hands continued her simple work, spreading peace one braid at a time. The morning air in Mbale was cool and soft, with the smell of rain from the night before. The streets were quiet, and only a few roosters called out from nearby homes. Inside the small salon called Crown of Glory, the lamps were still dim, and the sound of a broom brushing the floor filled the silence. Amina was already awake as she always was before sunrise. She liked the peace of the early hours. It was her favorite time of day, the time she felt closest to her thoughts. That morning her young helper Tola came earlier than usual. She was curious. 4 days people in the market had been talking about Amina's secret oils, and Tola wanted to know the truth. She cared about Amina and didn't believe the rumors, but her curiosity had grown too strong to ignore. When she reached the salon door, she saw a faint light coming from inside. Amina hadn't noticed her yet. Tola opened the door quietly and stepped in, hiding behind the long brown curtain that hung beside the mirror. Through a small gap she could see everything. Amina was kneeling beside her small clay bowl, the same one she used every morning. The bowl was filled with her special mixture, coconut oil, shea butter and a little palm oil. But Amina didn't look like someone doing something magical. She looked calm and peaceful, her hands folded together as if she was praying. Tola watched as Amina dipped her fingers into the oil and began to whisper. Her voice was soft, almost like a song. Tola couldn't understand every word, but she could hear phrases like peace, joy, and strength. Amina's eyes were closed and her face looked warm and gentle in the light. There was no smoke, no charms, no strange bottles. Only a woman praying over her work with love. Tola's heart softened. She had always admired Amina's kindness, but now she understood it even more. The secret wasn't in the oils. It was in the words, the care, and the quiet blessings that Amina spoke every morning. Amina finished her prayer and smiled at the bowl. Then she stood up, cleaned her hands and began setting up the salon for the day. Tola stepped out from behind the curtain, her small feet making a sound on the floor. Amina turned around and looked surprised but not angry. "Tola," she said softly, "you're early today." Tola looked down, feeling shy. "I wanted to see what you do every morning," she said. "People say so many things, Amina. They say you use charms. I wanted to see for myself." Amina smiled gently. "And what did you see, my dear?" Tola raised her eyes and said, "I saw you praying." Amina nodded. "Yes, I pray. I speak good words into my oils before I touch anyone's hair. Every woman who comes here carries her own story. Some are sad, some are tired, and some have lost their joy. I want them to leave with more than just beautiful hair. I want them to leave with peace." Tola smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest. "So your secret is blessings?" Amina laughed softly. You can call it that. I believe words have power. When we speak good things, we bring light into people's lives. Tola thought about that for a moment. Can I also say good words? She asked. Amina touched her shoulder gently. Of course, my dear. Anyone can. When you do something with love, it becomes a blessing too. That day when the salon opened, Amina and Tola worked together as usual. But Tola saw everything differently now. When Amina greeted her customers, she didn't just speak, she gave them comfort. When she touched their hair, it wasn't just work, it was kindness. The first customer that morning was a young girl named Fola, who came for braids. She looked sad when she arrived. Her mother was sick and she hadn't been sleeping well. Amina noticed her dull eyes and said softly, "You are strong, my child. Your mother will be proud of you." Fola smiled a little and Amina began to braid her hair slowly. As she worked, she hummed a quiet tune, a song of hope. The sound filled the small room and even Tola felt peaceful. When the braids were done, Fola looked in the mirror and gasped. She looked brighter, her face glowing with a small smile. "You made me beautiful," she said happily. Amina smiled. "You were already beautiful. I only helped you see it." When Fola left, Tola whispered, "Now I see what your blessings do. They make people happy inside." Amina nodded. "Yes, Tola. When we speak kind words and do our work with care, we touch more than just hair. We touch hearts." The day went on and more women came. Some were rich, some poor, some cheerful and some sad. Amina treated them all the same. She listened when they talked about their problems, gave them gentle advice and never judged anyone. Even when someone complained or acted rude, Amina stayed calm. She always said, "People carry many pains we cannot see. A kind word may be the only comfort they find today." That evening when the sun began to set, Tola helped Amina close the salon. As they cleaned up, Tola said, "I used to think this salon was small and simple. But now I think it is special." Amina smiled and nodded. "It is special not because of the walls or chairs, but because of what we put into it. Love makes any place shine." They sat outside for a while watching the sunset. The market was growing quieter, and the orange sky reflected on the tin roofs of the shops. Amina handed Tola a small calabash of oil and said, "Take this home. Use it to bless your family when they sleep. Say good words and their hearts will rest well." Tola held the oil carefully as if it were gold. "Thank you, Amina. I will." That night, when Tola went home, she did exactly as Amina said. She whispered blessings for her mother and younger brother. She said, "May they be strong, may they be happy, may their days be full of peace." When she finished, she felt lighter, as if something warm had filled her chest. The next morning, Tola's mother said she had slept well for the first time in weeks. Tola smiled, thinking of Amina's words, "When you do something with love, it becomes a blessing too." From that day, Tola helped Amina not just with work but with heart. She greeted every woman kindly, helped them feel at home, and even whispered her own small blessings when she combed their hair. The rumor in the market still continued. Some still believed Amina's oils had magic. But now Tola knew better. She didn't try to stop the gossip, she only smiled quietly when she heard it. She knew the truth. Amina's gift came from her love, her faith, and her gentle prayers. And every dawn, when the light began to rise over Mbale, Amina still knelt beside her small bowl, whispering softly. Her words filled the air like invisible sunshine, unseen but always felt. If only the world knew what she truly did on their hair, they would understand that her power was not in magic but in kindness, the kind that could heal hearts and make even an ordinary day feel bright again. The market of Mbale was louder than usual that morning. Traders were shouting, buyers were bargaining, and the sound of drums came from a group of boys playing nearby. But underneath all that noise, another sound was spreading, the sound of gossip. Once again, people were talking about Amina, the woman who owned the salon Crown of Glory. It began with Mama Kola, who stood in front of her mango stall with her hands on her hips, speaking loudly so everyone could hear. "I am telling you," she said, "Amina does not just braid hair. She uses charms. I saw her early in the morning kneeling with a bowl. What else could she be doing?" Some women gasped. Others laughed nervously. But even those who laughed were curious. The gossip spread from one corner of the market to another, moving faster than the morning breeze. By noon, the whole town seemed to be whispering about Amina again. Inside her salon, Amina worked quietly as always. She was plaiting a customer's hair, humming a soft tune. Her young helper, Tola, was sweeping the floor. But she could hear the voices outside, the loud ones, the mocking ones, and even the ones pretending to whisper softly. Her heart felt heavy. She had seen Amina's kindness every day. She had watched her pray for the women, speaking blessings with her soft voice. She knew the truth. Amina used no charms, no spells. Only faith and love. When the laughter and gossip outside grew louder, Tola couldn't take it anymore. She looked at Amina, who only smiled calmly and kept working. But Tola felt her chest burning with anger. She dropped the broom and ran outside. The market grew quiet when they saw her. The young girl stood in front of the crowd, her eyes full of courage. "Stop talking about her," she shouted. "You are wrong." The women looked at her in surprise. Mama Kola frowned. What is this little girl saying?" Tola took a deep breath and said loudly, "She doesn't use charms, she prays for you. I have seen it with my own eyes. Every morning before you wake up, she kneels beside her bowl of oil and says kind words. She asks God to bless every woman who sits in her chair. She doesn't call spirits. She calls peace." The crowd went silent. Even Mama Kola blinked, unsure of what to say. The other women looked at each other, whispering softly. Just then Amina stepped out of her salon. Her calm face glowed in the afternoon light. She didn't look angry or hurt. She simply smiled gently and said, "It's true. I pray before I work. I speak words of strength into your hair. You already carry beauty inside you, I only remind you of it." Her words were soft, but they touched every heart that heard them. The women looked down, ashamed of their gossip. Amina continued, "You see, when a woman feels beautiful inside, she walks taller. She faces her troubles with courage. My hands only help her see what was already there." The crowd was quiet for a long time. Even the wind seemed to stop moving. Then one of the older women, Mama Fola, stepped forward. She had been one of Amina's regular customers for years. Her voice was shaky as she said, "Amina, I never believed the gossip. Each time you touched my hair I felt peace. I didn't know why, but now I do. It was your prayers." Amina smiled softly. "Yes, Mama. I don't need magic. I only use love." Mama Kola looked embarrassed. She cleared her throat and said, "Amina, please forgive me. I did not know. I was only repeating what others said." Amina shook her head gently. "There is nothing to forgive, Mama. Words are like seeds. Sometimes we plant them without thinking and they grow into things we don't expect. But now we can plant better ones, words of kindness." Her calmness made everyone's heart soften. The women nodded, some smiling, some wiping tears from their eyes. Tola stood beside Amina, proud and happy. The market that had once whispered lies now fell silent in respect. Then something beautiful happened. One by one the women began to speak. "I always felt stronger after leaving your salon," said one. "My husband said I looked brighter," said another. "My daughter stopped crying when she saw her new braids. She said you made her feel special," said a third. Amina's eyes shone with gratitude. "You see," she said softly, "you all carry light inside you. I only help it shine a little brighter." From that day the women of Mbale looked at Amina differently. The gossip stopped and in its place came admiration and love. Her salon became even busier than before, not just because of her skill, but because people felt peace there. Women would come early in the morning, not only to do their hair but to sit quietly and listen to Amina's gentle words. She would tell them simple truths, that they were strong, that they were beautiful, that no trouble could take away their worth. She reminded them that confidence came not from looks but from self-belief. And as she braided and twisted hair, she also repaired hearts that had been broken by worry, sadness, or self-doubt. Tola watched all of this with pride. She had once been a shy girl who spoke little, but Amina's faith had taught her to be brave. That day in the market had changed her forever. She had seen how truth could calm storms and how kindness could melt even the hardest hearts. Weeks later, Mama Kola came to the salon quietly. She brought a small basket of mangoes as a gift. "For you, Amina," she said shyly, "and for the young girl who spoke with courage." Amina smiled and accepted the gift. "Thank you, Mama. These are sweet, I can tell." Mama Kola laughed. "Not as sweet as your heart," she replied. Then she added softly, "I will tell everyone what I learned, that words of prayer are stronger than charms." Amina nodded. That would be a good story to spread. From that time the market changed too. The women began to speak kinder words to one another. When someone did well in business they said, "May your blessings continue." When someone looked sad they said, "You will find peace." It was as if Amina's gentle spirit had spread beyond her salon into every corner of Mbale. Even the men noticed the difference. They said the market felt warmer and more peaceful. Children laughed louder and smiles were easier to find. Amina continued her work as always, quietly and faithfully. But every time she knelt beside her bowl in the morning, she added one more prayer, for her town. She whispered, "Let Mbale be a place of kindness, where words heal instead of hurt." Tola often watched her and whispered her own small prayer too. She wanted to be like Amina one day, someone whose presence brought peace. As for the townspeople, they no longer called Amina Mama Magic. They called her Amina the Blessing. Her name became known not only in Mbale but in nearby villages too. Women came from far away just to have their hair done by her, but they always left with something more, a heart full of hope. And sometimes when people asked her how she made such beautiful work, she would smile softly and say, "I don't just style hair. I remind people who they are." The story of that day in the market lived on for many years, the day when truth stood tall and love silenced gossip. If only they knew earlier what she truly did on their hair, they would have never doubted her. But now they finally understood that Amina's secret was not in her hands or her oils, it was in her heart. The sun rose slowly over the red roofs of Mbale, painting the town in gold. The smell of roasted maize and fresh bread filled the morning air. Life had returned to peace again, and in the middle of it all stood Amina's little salon, Crown of Glory, the same place where gossip once stirred but now shone with laughter and love. Every morning, women gathered there long before Amina even opened the door. Some came to braid their hair, some came just to sit and talk, and others came because they said it felt good to be near her. The small salon had become something more than a place for beauty, it was a place for comfort, joy, and hope. Tola swept the floor while humming softly, her hands moving quickly. She had grown taller and more confident, and Amina often said she would one day open her own salon. "You have good hands, my girl," Amina told her one morning. "But more than that, you have a good heart. And that is what makes the work shine." Outside, the sound of the market filled the street. Sellers shouted about tomatoes, plantains, and dried fish. But among those voices were kind greetings and warm laughter. People had changed. The women who once traded gossip now traded blessings. When one's business did well, the others clapped for her. When one was sad, the others comforted her. It was as if Amina's kindness had planted seeds in every heart, seeds that had now grown into flowers of friendship. Mama Kola, the same woman who once spread rumors, was now one of Amina's biggest supporters. Every week she came to the salon with fresh mangoes. "For my daughter Amina," she would say proudly, smiling with missing teeth. "The woman who made me see that prayer is stronger than envy." Amina would always laugh softly. "Thank you, Mama," she would reply, placing a mango on Tola's table. "You've become sweeter than your fruit." The women in the salon would laugh, and soon the place would be full of stories and music. Someone would start singing, another would clap, and before long, the whole room would be filled with joy. It wasn't just the hairstyles that brought them there, it was the feeling they carried when they left. They said Amina's hands had magic, but not the kind from charms or spells. It was the magic of care, of being seen and loved. One afternoon, a woman named Halima came to the salon. She looked worried and tired. Her eyes were red and she didn't smile when she greeted the others. Amina welcomed her kindly. "Come sit," she said. "Let me braid your hair. You will feel lighter." Halima sighed. "Amina, my husband lost his job. We have nothing left. I came to you because I didn't know where else to go." Amina nodded quietly and began to part her hair gently. "Do not worry," she said softly. "Your story is not finished yet." As her hands moved through Halima's hair, she spoke words of peace. "You are strong. You have faced storms before and stood tall. You will rise again." By the time she finished, Halima looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes were brighter, her shoulders straighter. She smiled for the first time that day. "I feel different," she said. Amina smiled back. "That is because I only remind you of what you already have, courage." The other women nodded. They had all felt it too, that small change that started inside the heart whenever Amina worked. It wasn't just hair she touched, it was people's spirits. Later that week, Halima's husband found a new job at a nearby school. She ran back to the salon to tell Amina the news. "You prayed for me," she said, tears in her eyes. Amina laughed softly. "I prayed, yes. But your faith made the prayer live." Word of such stories began to spread again, but this time it wasn't gossip, it was admiration. People said, "Amina's salon isn't just for beauty. It's for healing." The town began to change in quiet ways. The market women stopped fighting over small things. Children helped their parents with smiles. Even the men who once teased their wives for spending too long at the salon, now thanked Amina. One said, "My wife comes back home smiling after every visit." Whatever you do there, keep doing it. Amina only smiled and replied, I just remind her that she is precious. Tola loved to watch these moments. Every day she learned something new, not only about hair but about patience and kindness. Sometimes she asked, Amina, why don't you tell people your secret? You could be famous. Amina would laugh softly. Fame is loud, my child. But blessings are quiet. If they knew what I really did on their hair, they might not believe it. So I just smile and keep working. One evening, when the sun was setting and the sky turned orange, Amina closed her salon and sat outside with Tola. The streets were calm. Children played nearby, and the smell of roasted corn floated through the air. Tola looked at her and asked, Do you ever get tired of people? Amina smiled gently. Never. People are like hair, sometimes tangled, sometimes broken, sometimes rough. But with care and patience you can bring out their beauty again. Tola thought about it and nodded. So that's your secret. Amina chuckled. Maybe it is. But it's not really a secret. Anyone can do it. You just need love. As night fell, lanterns began to glow in the streets of Mbale. The town looked peaceful, almost shining. Amina's heart felt full as she listened to the laughter around her. The same people who once doubted her were now living proof that kindness could change even the hardest hearts. The next morning, as she prepared her oils, she whispered her usual prayer. May every woman who sits here find strength. May every heart that enters feel peace. And may this town never forget the power of gentle words. Her hands moved softly over the hair of her first customer of the day. The woman smiled as she looked in the mirror and said, Amina, your work is different. It feels like light. Amina only smiled, her eyes warm. If only you knew what I did on your hair, she said quietly, almost to herself. And that was all she ever said, those simple words that carried so much meaning. In Bale, people no longer measured beauty by looks alone. They said beauty lived in kindness, and strength was the most beautiful thing a woman could wear. Years later, when Tola finally opened her own salon, she followed the same path. She prayed before working, spoke softly to her customers and reminded them of their worth. When people asked where she learned such ways, she smiled and said, From the woman who prayed through her hands. Amina grew older, but her spirit never faded. Her small salon remained a place of peace, her name a symbol of love. Children grew up hearing her story and women passed it down to their daughters. And whenever someone asked, what made her work so special? The people of Mbale would smile and repeat her words. If only they knew what I did on their hair.